Nearly 4 years ago, I sat down to watch a stop-motion animated film that I still think about on an almost daily basis. No exaggeration, it is one of my favorite movies of all time that not nearly enough people have seen. So today, I'm going to take you through the magical world of Kubo and the Two Strings while we analyze its themes of death, grief, and yes, even hair. So, if you must blink, do it now.
I promise I won't even blink. I actually don't think I even can blink. Do I have eyelids?
I have wanted to make a video about Kubo ever since I started my channel, and you guys seem to really like my video about the greatest showman and the bearded lady, so perhaps we'll start a little series of videos analyzing the use of hair in modern media. Let me know down in the comments what movies, books, or TV shows you'd like to hear about next. But anyway, I don't want to take too much time stringing you along. So let's move right on into Kubo and the Two Strings. Obviously, there are going to be some spoilers, and honestly, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I feel bad for you. But we're pressing on, so as the movie says, pay careful attention to everything you see and hear, no matter how unusual it may seem. So Kubo and the Two Strings can best be described as a samurai epic taking place in feudal Japan, where a young Kubo is taking care of his sick mother after she'd rescued him from his evil grandfather, the Moon King. The movie already begins with a strong theme of honoring mortality, as Kubo's mother explains that the Moon King is immortal and therefore blind to humanity. As a baby, the Moon King attempted to steal Kubo's eyes so that he would be blind to humanity as well. With the help and sacrifice of his mortal samurai father, Kubo and his mother were able to escape the Moon King's evil clutches, with Kubo losing only a single eye in the process, thus leaving his mortality and therefore his humanity intact. With his mother's health and memory failing, Kubo spends his days in town playing his magical shamisen in order to tell stories through animated origami figures.
I'm not even convinced this counts as origami. I could swear scissors were involved.
One day while Kubo is in town, he learns that everybody is gearing up for the Obon festival, which is a Buddhist tradition of honoring deceased loved ones. During the Obon festival, there is music, dancing, lanterns, and family reunion. The living visit and lovingly clean the graves of their ancestors, while the ancestors are said to return to Earth that night.
Grandma is here!
Upon learning this, an excited Kubo joins the festival after dark to present a lantern in the hopes of finally speaking to the father he never knew. But this means that the Moon King can find him if he's out after dark, and it isn't long before his two evil, immortal aunts come to claim him. Sensing danger, Kubo's mother springs awake and rushes in to stop the attack, ultimately sacrificing herself for her son. Now this next scene is the one that took an already compelling movie and just really sent it through the roof of brilliance and forever engraved its place upon my hairy heart. Kubo wakes up in a far-off land to learn that his mother is gone, but a little wooden snow monkey charm he carried for protection has come to life. After fluctuating emotions of confusion and anger, he looks down somberly to find that he is holding a lock of his mother's hair. He realizes that he accidentally pulled it from her head as he was trying to cling to her during the battle, and now it is all he has left of her. The snow monkey then grabs the lock of hair and begins to twist as she says these words. This bracelet, her hair, is a memory, and memories are powerful things, Kubo. Never lose it. And just like that, Kubo now has his very own piece of mourning hair jewelry in the form of a bracelet made of his mother's hair. Now, obviously for the sake of the story and animation, this bracelet is crafted quite quickly and simply, but I would like to dig a little deeper and explore what the construction of a bracelet like this might actually look like in real life, and how it so perfectly and beautifully has ties to Japanese craft history, which, of course, is right along with the themes of this movie. A bracelet made of hair like this would most commonly be associated with European and American styles of hairwork during the Victorian era. The construction of a piece like this would include carefully counting individual strands of hair and affixing them to weighted bobbins, which would then be draped over and through a small table with a hole in the center. This would then allow the hairworker to weave and braid around the table using various patterns in order to create an intricate braid. For obvious reasons, this particular technique for making hair jewelry is called table work. If these hairworking techniques were predominantly practiced in Europe and America, how then does a hair bracelet like this tie into an animated samurai film? In order to answer this question, we must look at the ancient Japanese art of Kumihimo. Kumihimo is the Japanese art of cord braiding, and cord braiding has been an important Japanese craft for many centuries, and early iterations of the craft involved finger loop braiding that was done freehand, but later evolved into the art of Kumihimo when braiding stands, or Marudai, were introduced during the Edo period. Marudai have many similarities to the kinds of tables used by Victorian hairworkers. They have a hole in the center, and they utilize weighted bobbins on each strand of fiber with a counterweight placed through the center of the hole, and oftentimes they even use the same braiding patterns. Everything about this movie has such a clever attention to detail that the subtle significance of Kumihimo in this movie goes even further than this hair jewelry reference. Kumihimo is not only significant to Japanese craft history, but also essential to samurai history. At this point in the movie, Kubo must now carry on with his mother's memory on his wrist, and his mission is to protect himself from the Moon King by seeking out 3 important pieces of his father's lost samurai gear: his sword, his breastplate, and his helmet. But it is the breastplate that I would like to take a closer look at. You see, samurai would traditionally wear a form of lamellar armor made from smaller plates that are laced together. And what were the plates laced together with, you might ask? None other than Kumihimo cords. In fact, lacing together armor for samurai and their horses is one of the most prominent historical uses for Kumihimo-style braiding. And did the makers of this film portray the armor accurately? Well, it certainly looks like it. Aside from losing his parents and grieving for them, there are many other references to mortality along his journey. Some are obvious, while others are so steeped in mythology and folklore that you may not even notice on the first watch. One of the more obvious mortality references includes a giant skeleton, which is modeled off of the Gashadokuro spirit from Japanese mythology, which is quite literally a skeleton composed of the bones of those who have died of starvation and were never buried. So in other words, people who were forgotten in life as well as death. It's important to point out that none of this is explicitly stated in the story. On the surface, the giant skeleton only serves to provide an obstacle to overcome in order to obtain the sword they're searching for, but this is just a true testament to how carefully the filmmakers used Japanese folklore in order to keep the theme of memory consistent, specifically as it pertains to the way we remember the dead. As they're nearing the end of their journey, they observe a flock of golden herons flying overhead, and the snow monkey explains that golden herons are believed to carry the souls of the departed because when we die, we do not just disappear. And by this point in the movie, the story has already beaten us over the head with the theme of memory time and time again. So we can, of course, conclude that we live on through the memories of our loved ones. And in this moment, beneath the departed souls, everything seems peaceful. But everything soon changes when Kubo and his traveling companions are ambushed once again by one of the evil aunts. This is not your typical happy children's movie where all of the heroes survive. In the midst of the battle, Kubo once again loses everyone. Now, completely alone, Kubo breaks the strings of his shamisen while frantically strumming it in a desperate attempt to escape. He is successful, and yet, with broken strings and nobody at his side, things seem hopeless for Kubo as he is now about to face his final peril, coming face to face with the Moon King himself. The Moon King tries to convince Kubo that a life in the heavens is far better than a life on Earth because he would be immortal and infinite. But by this time, Kubo is well aware that all stories must come to an end. He knows, too, that for every ounce of suffering and grief that there is on Earth, there is something even more beautiful that makes living a mortal life worthwhile. He has made his decision. The Moon King transforms into a monster and the battle ensues. Things quickly escalate and, not so subtly, transition to the cemetery. And what's worse is that after landing a few blows with his father's sword, the Moon King seems impossible to defeat with physical weaponry. So what does Kubo do? He grabs his father's bowstring and his mother's lock of hair, and he uses them to restring his shamisen. A shamisen is a 3-stringed instrument, so Kubo then plucks a hair from his own head and makes the 3rd string, effectively reuniting his whole family and all of the memories they share together in his instrument. With a strum, he is able to awaken all of the memories of those he has loved and lost, and within those memories, Kubo and his entire village are able to create a protective barrier that even the Moon King cannot penetrate. Oddly enough, I have seen some critique the title of the movie saying that Kubo and the 2 strings is misleading due to the fact that the instrument he plays has 3 strings, but if you ask me, it's really quite perfect. For mourning purposes, a lock of hair is the physical embodiment of your lost loved one. Hair is a part of you. Kubo is using a part of himself to create the final string. The 1st string is his mother's hair, and therefore his mother. For lack of a lock of hair, the bowstring serves as a metaphorical stand-in for his father. So quite literally, this right here is Kubo, his mother, and his father. Kubo and the 2 strings. But the real question is, can you actually play a stringed instrument with human hair? Well, if it's coated with the right substance, technically, yes. I honestly don't know exactly what they put on the hair to get it to sound like that, but if anyone knows, please tell me down in the comments, because unlike a shamisen, a violin is not supposed to have only 3 strings, so mine here could really use a good restringing and a good tuning. Yeah. Bear in mind that this is all completely done in stop motion, which means that everything you see on screen is handcrafted and the characters themselves are puppets. I mentioned earlier that the Edo period was an important period for the progression of Kumihimo techniques, but it was also an important period for traditional Japanese doll making. In fact, in several interviews, the director of the movie, Travis Knight, has credited Edo period doll making as one of the visual influences for the art style of the movie, and Edo period dolls were very often made using real human hair. Remaining true to the historical origins of these Japanese dolls, the animators also used real human hair. That's right, that means this, and even this is actually human hair. In order to better control the movements of the hair in this animation, the puppet makers very cleverly coated the hair with silicone, which is why it looks and moves the way it does. But it is still hair, and I am still in love with this movie. And so, my fellow mortal humans, that is where I'm going to end the video for today. Please leave a thumbs up if you learned something new and or love this movie even half as much as I do. A huge and heartfelt thank you to my supporters on Patreon who make it easier for me to keep making online content. And a special thank you for subscribing to my channel. We just hit 500 subscribers and I can't wait to see how fast we can make it to 1,000. Bye!